Today, the latest developments in downtown Melbourne. A school board member from Viera goes crazy over drones, and we talk one-on-one with the mayor of Cocoa about the latest in his city. That's next. This is Brevard Watch, the news experience focused exclusively on Florida's Space Coast. Thanks for joining us. I'm Matt Reed. Let's meet our guest for today's awesome mashup of Space Coast news and ideas. Matt Susin is the school board member representing District 4, which includes Viera, Suntree, Rockledge, and much of northern Melbourne. A former teacher and coach, he has been heavily involved in efforts to improve the workforce training in Brevard schools. Also joining us is Jarin Eisenberg, executive director at Melbourne Main Street. She is an evangelist for downtown redevelopment and what it can do for an entire city. If you want to know what she does, drive downtown, get out, and look around, and notice the interesting stuff. That. Joke? No joking aside.
That's great.
Thanks for joining us here in the studio. Jarin, Matt, let's make news. I usually save this question for last, but I find that the best stuff usually comes out of it. What are you up to next? What kind of projects are you working on?
First, I want to say how great of a job that Jarin's been doing down there. We worked together when I worked at the insurance company down in downtown Melbourne, and seeing her come on and revitalize that entire area down there was phenomenal. I was honored when I saw the email coming that I'd actually be on here with her, because she's what our county and cities need inside here, is somebody who's going to come in and bring us back to, you know what I mean, bring advancements in downtown and bring all the new businesses and put a different face on things. And I'm really excited to be here. I just want to say that first. I'm really involved right now in career and technical programs. We're getting ready to create pipelines into every one of our programs. So if there's an automotive CTE program at O'Galley High School, the largest automotive company that's near there, we're going to name that program after them and then have those kids going to work right in there. For example, we're breaking ground on an aviation hangar at O'Galley High School, and when that goes in, Embraer is going to become the Embraer Aviation Hangar, and kids out of there will literally, at 16 years old, be going there to work and get their certifications and everything else. It's an amazing way to do it, all the way from down south in Palm Bay, all the way up to Mico. All of our kids will be going in, and we found some dollars to be able to do some on-the-job training and stuff like that. So really excited. I'm leaving here to go to a construction industry board that we created, and then also earlier on today at the Economic Development Council, we were going through the entire Tallahassee plan for apprenticeships going forward. So every sector of this county is talking about construction and trades programs and everything else. Even the people, we're galvanized, we're ready to go, and I'm excited.
So the news is real results, real things getting up and running, support, actual infrastructure, and kids getting certified.
Yeah.
In the kind of vocational training and jobs training that people say that we need.
It is our number one priority on strategic plan this year is career and technical programs.
Jarin, downtown Melbourne, what's up next for you?
We are gearing up for a huge fall in downtown. So we are hosting Florida Tech's Homecoming and the Fatalities. Then we roll right into the Downtown Melbourne Food and Wine Festival, which is almost sold out, holiday shopping, and we're gearing up for the groundbreaking ceremony for the High Line, which looks to be late December, early January. We hope to bring a boutique hotel to council for approval this year. So there's lots of development, and it has the potential to kind of all come to the head at the same time, and we're ready for it and very excited about it.
Matt was just talking about manufacturing, technical jobs, aviation, Embraer. How has some of the latest sort of economic development projects and those kind of companies coming in, how's that affected downtown?
They are fundamentally changing downtown because it's requiring us to meet the needs of people that are moving into this county. So one of the things that we do at Melbourne Main Street is we partner with large tech and defense companies. We go and do their new employee orientations, and we tell them about ways that they can get engaged in downtown. I think Melbourne is different in the sense that you have to look a little bit harder to find the things to do and kind of find the beauty. You got to settle in a little bit in Melbourne, and we want to help them get acquainted with the area right away. And so they want different things from downtown. We're changing up some of our events. You're going to see us doing different things with Friday Fest next year to respond to those needs. We're doing a lot of family-oriented events because the people that are coming into this area are just about to start families, and we want them to know that this is a place that they can grow and call home.
So you do a lot of, I guess, internal recruiting, people who are already here among young professionals to get them engaged in downtown and activities and
And
give them a sense of place.
Yeah, and help these tech companies recruit. So we recently fundraised and did a video that it's all right here in downtown Melbourne. And we did that so that we could give it to Embraer and Northrop Grumman and Harris and say, hey, use this to show off Melbourne. Let us help you do, what you need to do, because I don't want to live in a Melbourne without a Northrop Grumman or Embraer. That's not an exciting place to be like it is now. So we want to support the growth at the airport and Northrop Grumman and help them give the tools so that they can attract that talent, but then keep that talent here in Melbourne.
Matt, this just occurred to me, but it seems like Brevard Public Schools might be one of the biggest hiring entities when it comes to young professionals in Brevard County.
It is.
Are we overlooking teachers? We go out and we recruit all over the country to bring 22-year-olds, 23-year-olds down for their first jobs teaching in Brevard Public Schools. Are we plugging them into things like the young professionals and the downtowns in Brevard County?
No, we're not, and we need to be. There's a definite, what she was just saying, there's two things that the site developers from companies look at is, one, what are you doing for the millennials, because that's the majority of their workforce. The other thing is career and technical. For teachers, when they're looking to come to a place, they want to know what's going on downtown, what's going on here and there. We have a small underfunded group that we're about to expand for retention and recruitment, that's about to start those processes, but we have not in the past said, hey guys, come to Brevard, because we've never gone outside of our area to recruit. And now we're finding, in order to be competitive with a lot of the other school districts, we actually have to get out there to do that. That creates a whole nother list of things that we need to do, and that's what we're evaluating. But I think that this is an area that we really could grow as a school district, is to go ahead and do that. And then a lot of the things that she's doing down there, you could replicate and do with the school systems too. We could even get some of the engineers to start dating the new teachers to keep them here.
That would really help keep them here. Like, seriously, dating is an issue.
Teachers and techies. I think we've got a theme here. Let's talk about one of the biggest news stories that has come through Brevard County in the year, and that's Hurricane Irma. You both experienced it in different ways, I'm sure. Tell me something that you learned about Brevard County from Hurricane Irma. Jarin, let's start with you this time.
Yeah, I had a lot of thanks to the restaurants, because I was personally flooded out in Irma and we couldn't stay in our place, and it was downtown business owners that were very generous, but it was cleaning out my house for days and then being able to go downtown and like have a cold drink and a meal. And they were out there with limited menus, and they didn't have power, and they were making it work for people the best that they could. And I saw so many people come downtown to like get that reprieve and get that meal. So I learned that our restaurants are really, really resilient, and they're going to open no matter what.
That's great to hear, and I'm really sorry to hear about your home. Where is it? Is it near the river, or?
It is on Crane Creek runs behind my house.
Oh, wow.
And sometimes in my house.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
It just depends.
Sometimes in your house. Matt Susin, lesson from Hurricane Irma.
So one of the biggest things that I learned is the infrastructure that we have in Brevard schools to deal with the shelters. That was the most phenomenal thing that I've ever seen, is being that we are the infrastructure for those shelters, and most of the employees that are inside there are our principals, our assistant principals, our custodians, everybody. They mobilize, and they do such an amazing job inside there to keep the kids happy. There was a point where a 51-year anniversary was held inside one of the classrooms for a family, and they made like special food for them and everything like that. That was one aspect. And the other aspect that I learned was that in Brevard schools, when we're not feeding most of these poorer kids, they're not eating. And I didn't realize that until I went over the Temple Terrace area and noticed a lot of the different kids that are standing there. And Carlos from the Boys and Girls Club says, Matt, we got to get them food. And I had never seen that before. So we went over and cooked up some hot dogs and started getting going, and that's another initiative that we're getting ready to kick off to take care of. So those two pieces, the response that Brevard schools did was phenomenal. And then how hard it hits when people that are outside there are saying, oh, I can't believe I don't have electricity. And then you go and you see kids that are literally starving. And that was a big impact in my life. So,
let's talk about business for a minute, because it ties into whether people are employed, it ties into the jobs that you're trying to get people. How would you rate the business, I guess, infrastructure for the things that you're trying to do? And infrastructure could be anything. It could be internet, roads, airports, schools, access to capital. How would you size things up, Matt?
I would say that our business community here in Brevard is phenomenal. We have some of the highest high-tech industries with Harris, Northrop Grumman, Rockwell Collins that are bringing in a lot of the higher education type people. And then also, we have the largest manufacturing base in the state of Florida with over 500 manufacturers. On top of that, you have businesses that are all like-minded towards it. We, as a school system, receive a significant amount of revenue from these different places so that they can help out our STEM programs and a lot of our kids that are homeless and starving and everything else. And I would also say that there's the availability to get from point A to point B, as far as the roads and everything else, is great. And right now we're dealing with the fact that we're growing so fast, so you're starting to see a lot of the backup.
Jarin, how about downtown Melbourne? I mean, is it evolving the way that you expected? And what's missing and what's there that's great?
Yeah, it is evolving because I think we're getting a lot of entrepreneurial-minded business owners in that are very community-minded. There's a little bit of vacancy downtown right now, and I think we're in a bit of a transition, but we're optimistic of what that could bring into downtown. In terms of what we're missing, I think we need lighting, and I've kind of talked about that a lot over this past year, but downtowns need all different types of lighting, and we're missing that, and it's a little bit hard to do with the type of infrastructure that we have. The other thing that I think we're missing, which is, if you ask me what's your dream for downtown, is an outdoor amphitheater, is these public spaces where people can just be, where students can come down and lay on that blanket and just kind of hang out and start creating those traditions in downtown. So we hope that with the development on the way, it'll attract more and that we can start doing some of those big projects. We have a small lighting project that we're going to be turning the lights on at the end of this year in the front of downtown, but it's really just to draw the attention to what we really need in the core.
We're going to come back and talk about some of the specific developments today in this program. But first, I hear that there's a band called the Fatalities that is very big with young people coming to homecoming for Florida Tech downtown. Explain.
So the Fatalities are coming for homecoming on Friday, November 3rd. They just released an album. They're touring in the UK. They haven't been to the United States since 2015, and we're their first and so far only stop in North America. So they're going to come downtown for a free concert. FIT is just a tremendous partner in what they invest into the show. Last year we had Wyclef Jean and 10,000 people, and we fully expect to have even more people come downtown. They might be known for a little bit of stage diving, so we're excited to see what that looks like and have some plans for it. But it's one of my favorite nights downtown to see all of those people just kind of rocking out in downtown. It's just a really, really special night, so I can't wait. I'm excited.
I might have been the oldest guy in the mosh pit when the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones played in downtown Melbourne.
Never too old for a mosh pit.
2 or 3 years ago. That was really, really fun, and it's terrific to see the Florida Tech and that community sort of embracing downtown and going down there and making it part of kind of a college town.
Yeah,
really.
This is Florida Tech's town. We have a Florida Tech mural. The students come down. They decorate all the windows with their students groups. We have a bunch of them coming and having vendor spots on the footprint. So this is Florida Tech's show, and we're just happy to support it and play a role in it.
Matt, you into the Fratellis?
Yeah, I just joined the 321 Millennials, even though I'm just a little bit outside of it. My wife harasses me because she says I can't be a millennial because I still read the newspaper in like print as opposed to on my computer. So there's a big transitional shift. So I have to go to this concert.
You have to go to the concert.
I have to stage dive. We'll just have to make sure there's no cameras there for the public for me to do it. And
Don't
there's some
hurt 'em,
Big
Matt.
guys catching me, of course.
I'll be there.
Some of those skinny college kids might not be able to catch me.
That's right. You talked about murals. I think, did you mention murals? There's murals going up all over Melbourne. They're downtown Melbourne. There's also Old O'Galley is getting a bunch of them as well. Explain.
So we received a grant this year for the first time in our program's history from the Florida Division of Cultural Affairs. And we're pretty proud because you go up against Miami and St. Petersburg. But we really think that Florida Tech mural and showing the investment they made in the program made the difference. So we got $10,000, and we're going to do 6 more murals. Right now, there's one going up on Melbourne Seafood Station by artist Christopher Maslow. But really, all downtowns have murals. We all just execute them a little bit differently. But they're psychological boost to your downtown. They're fun. I can't tell you how many people I see every day taking pictures or doing engagement photos. So they're memory makers, they're tradition makers, and they're fun and they're exciting and they're an easy redevelopment kind of tool.
Matt?
Yeah.
Do murals boost your psychology?
They do. Well, no, I mean, it gives to the culture. So there's the benches that they're painting up in Cocoa that are the same type thing, right? It's amazing. It catches your eye. No longer is that a bench that's sitting there. Now all of a sudden it's got a mermaid on it or whatever it is. My daughter loves it. She tries to grab her own paint set and go up there. So the murals are definitely a positive. And you were getting back to your auditorium that you were talking about, the outdoor amphitheater, and look what that's done for the Cocoa Down place.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the amount of people that go down there and feel like a part of that downtown. Melbourne should have that. They should definitely have that piece.
Calling all developers.
Calling all developers. In all seriousness, I think that murals are something that I've seen some of our student artists get involved with, and it's really pretty inspiring to see the communities take some of that kind of work seriously, where they might have been dismissed as graffiti artists or something a few years ago. They're putting up some pretty special stuff. In fact, I think, well, I could be wrong about this, but isn't the Shark Tooth mural in Old O'Galley, that artist, used to be a spray paint kind of an artist in Miami or someplace like that.
Yeah, so did Christopher Maslow. He used to be known for doing graffiti on buildings, and now he's this really well-respected artist in the community. But Chris said something the other day that I think is really important about murals. He said, I thought I would always have to leave Melbourne to kind of fulfill my dream of doing art in the way that I'm doing it, but I can do that here in Melbourne now. And I think that's a really important part of that, retaining talent and building the culture here in Melbourne, and art helps do that.
Look what we did at Melbourne High School. We spent extra money to take the mural that's been there since the 1980s to save it. They literally removed it from the wall. That's because it tells a story. Each one of these murals ties us to something that's inside this area, and that's what's very special about it. I'm glad. Keep going.
When we come back, a one-on-one interview with the mayor of Cocoa, plus an update on developments that could change the look and feel of Melbourne.
Take the BPS CCU High School Mascot debit card anywhere, anyplace. Show your school spirit every time you use your card. Get your favorite BPS CCU High School Mascot debit card today by visiting any CCU branch. Learn more at ccuflorida.org/spirit.
Mayor, break some news about Cocoa. You've got lots of stuff happening up there. I always like to say that Cocoa is kind of the biggest small city in Brevard County, given all the different kinds of interests and challenges that you face.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you congratulate you on your new position.
Thank you.
As school board. Also, as far as Cocoa goes, it's a small town. It's 14 square miles. We were going through a growth period like no other in the city's history. We have companies moving in, residents are coming back, people are moving in from all over the place. Cocoa's values has gone up. There's building on all four corners. We've got companies moving in north to south. Our redevelopment plans that we planned a few years ago has really helped lure new residents and businesses, and we were very appreciative of that. Our Cocoa historic Cocoa Village has really turned a corner. It's been slow going the last 10 years, but now there's a lot of things happening there. More living coming, a lot more events, I should say. It's come into its own.
Cocoa Village is probably the place for people outside of Cocoa that they might be most familiar with, because they go in, enjoy living, or not living, but shopping and dining out there. But there's a lot going on elsewhere. And one of the things that you brought up at the mayor's conference was a new Walmart distribution center, which people kind of, Walmart, but it's really something different from a store, isn't it?
Well, yes, it's right next to it's on our 524 corridor next to 528. And what it is Walmart has bought 280 acres, and they're well into planning a $150 million cold distribution center that's the largest center between here and the Keys. And it's going to employ around 460 people.
A lot of groceries and that kind of thing.
A lot of groceries, a lot of cold stuff, And then our Mike Irma is moving in. He's doing a brand new dealership, Toyota, Nissan, in the same area on 95. You'll see a much more of a street presence from the city of Cocoa on the 95 side. But there's a lot of companies moving in the north corridor. We're right in line with the Space Center and the port, and there's a lot of activity, a lot of subcontractors moving in. So there's a lot of jobs coming. And one of our promises is to bring jobs back, and they're coming in. So we're very, very happy about that.
One of your priorities as mayor, I know, has been crime and reducing that, but doing it in a way that the community's bought into it. How's it going?
Absolutely. What we're doing is we started with the kids. You know, we not only have a spectacular PAL program, but we have a community first program that encompasses the whole city limits. And basically, and we have a Rotary sponsored, oh, my brain's gone.
It's like a Boys and Girls Club,
Boys and
right?
Girls Club, right. And what's happened is we went on the young kids. We're focusing on youth up. And so it's easier to bring up your kids and get them, and make them, bring them into activities and to, you know, help focus, you know, their focus and turn around our, for the result is turn around our town. But I didn't explain that very well, but the point is we were focusing on our kids and versus being harder on crime. We're very diverse, we're very high tech on how we fight crime, but it's, you don't see the results so much in, you know, the crime rate going down, although it's been trending down. But the results you see is the last 5 years of hard work and affecting the youth, you know, that are coming online. You know, they're getting 20 and 21 years old and older. So it's working. I mean, everything's working. And along with that, our redevelopment efforts is really turning the town around. I mean, you got to remember when we started working on the city was probably at a much lower level than other cities. So we've came a long way in 4.5 years. But we have great people living there and great residents with great ideas. A lot more to come. I mean, there's a lot of cool things that are coming to the city of Cocoa, and I'm proud of that. And some of it I can't announce, some of it I can say, like the Walmart project, but it's going to be game changing.
One of the things that I know you and Cocoa have a little bit different take on than some of the cities and counties south of Brevard is the Bright Line train. That's supposed to be a kind of a high-speed commuter train that would go from South Florida, Miami, Fort Lauderdale to the Orlando airport, making a bend at Cocoa with a whole new track between Cocoa and Orlando. It's not scheduled to stop in Brevard County yet, but you think there's promise there. Why?
Oh, there's promise. I mean, let's think about it. It's a, you know, for-profit train, you know, company is what it is now. They broke away from FEC. They own a piece of the tracks. I'm talking about Bright Line or all aboard Florida. They're just now getting to the point where they're starting service between Miami and Lauderdale. I know some of the major hurdles, some of the lawsuits on the South counties have, you know, they've gotten past those. So things are starting to fall in place with all aboard. So what's going to happen is, I would say this year you'll probably see an announcement of them starting the work between Lauderdale and Orlando. And I believe we'll get a station. I do believe it because
there's a marketing study going on.
Oh yeah, and the TPO, the Brevard County TPO, has already selected the location, which was Cocoa and the first two. So it'll probably end up happening. Once they put the track in, they'll make an announcement way before that. But I mean, you got the port and you have the Space Center and historic Cocoa Village. His destinations right there. So you know, it just makes business sense. This is not a government entity where they put it in there and never change it. This is for profit, and it makes no sense not to put a stop in Brevard with the, you know, with the curve, the Cocoa curve. So, and you know, they're telling us they want to do it, and they're planning on it. But your business, it has to make business sense, you know. So I'm not backing up. I'm saying they're going to do it, and it's moving along. And I'm excited. I grew up with the FEC train system, and when they stopped it in 1969 or 70, and it was a great thing to take a train. So, you know,
it could be not only a feather in the cap, but people might decide to live in Cocoa and then commute to South Florida or to the airport.
I got an email. There's several people that have arrived here in the 60s, 50s and 60s by FEC train to the Cocoa station, and they ended up working at the Space Center. And their families, their kids are Facebooking me and telling me this. I mean, so yeah, it makes an effect. I'm excited. This is a fast train. It's quiet. You know, there's all kinds of rumors out there. I think it's going to be a great thing. I believe it's coming. So nothing's changed since the last time we talked.
Mayor Parrish, thanks for talking with me again.
Yes, sir.
And good luck.
Yep, thank you.
Hi there. I'm Brevard School Superintendent Desmond Blackburn, and I need to hear from you. Whether you're a parent, school employee, business person, or a senior in our amazing Legacy Club. At a town hall meeting near you, I'll share the latest on how our schools are performing based on what the community has already asked for. Then I'll ask you, what's next? What does your child or grandchild need most to succeed? What does your business or agency need in a high school graduate? How can our schools better support quality of life in your neighborhood? I will listen carefully, and I know your school board will too.
Hi, I'm Tina Deskovich, your school board member for District 3. To better serve you, we need to know your questions, needs, and concerns. Please join me and Superintendent Blackburn for a special town hall meeting that I will be hosting at Satellite High School. Mark your calendars for October 12th from 5:30 to 7. I hope to see you there.
Welcome back. My guests today are school board member Matt Susin and Jarin Eisenberg, Executive Director of Downtown Melbourne. Jarin and Matt, let's talk about a story that I actually did when I was at Florida Today, formerly a columnist there, about 5 developments that could change the look and feel of downtown. Now, I won't cover all of them, but some of the big important ones, I need an update on some of these things. Jarin, you mentioned in the first segment today the Highline apartment complex.
Yep.
It's going to be big. I think 8 stories, a number of units. I think I might move in if it ever gets built because I want to be across the street or kitty corner from places like the Henniger Center and Meg O'Malley's. But I haven't seen it broken ground yet on that. What gives? What's the update on that?
Yeah, Zimmerman Development will be breaking ground late December, early January, shoring up the financing, do those little things that kind of take a little bit of extra time, but that project is a go. We will see a groundbreaking ceremony very soon, and it's going to fundamentally change downtown Melbourne, and we can't wait for it.
Why? Why is it going to change things fundamentally?
Because when people are living in your downtown, they're going to demand things from your downtown, but they're also going to take care of it. They're going to foster that resident attachment that's so important for revitalization, and they're going to take care of downtown. They're going to help us do that job. And so creating that 24/7 economy is really important for the businesses that call it home. And so we really feel like it's kind of all come together, but then it goes back to what we talked about before. When I go to these large tech companies and I do orientation, they want to know, well, where can I live downtown? And we need to respond to that need and say, well, you can come rent a luxury loft at the Highline in downtown Melbourne. So it's going to meet many, many needs that we have. And I feel in general, it's just going to help us kind of grow up as a downtown a little bit and take us to that next level. And I don't think we could get there without that residential component.
Matt, the school board actually played a role in making that apartment development possible. It's the site of at least a piece of the old Melbourne High School building. There were some protests and things that happened there. The school board had some kind of rights to that land.
Reverter clause.
Bring us back to that and explain what happened.
So the Melbourne High School is a beautiful building, and it had somebody stepped in 10 years prior and started shoring it up and getting it ready, it would have been there. I worked with a lot of the groups that were protesting to try to talk to them about a solution-based, take the things that
They
are
wanted
inside
to preserve
of it.
the old building,
Right,
right?
they wanted to preserve the old building, but once I wanted them to realize that they could no longer do that, how do we take the memory of this and everything else and go somewhere else? How do we take the windows out and put them maybe in downtown? How do we take all of the components inside there so that it then becomes part of it? They never got involved in that. So the day before they demolished it, I went up there and took 30 wood windows, they're in my garage, along with all of the components that are inside of it that I could try to save so that if I never needed to come to a person like Jarin and say, hey, you got some new developers that are trying to look for that retro look, I'll give them to them. And the idea is that the school could no longer be saved. So along with a lot of our vacant properties and stuff like that that we're putting on the rolls now, why would we have a dilapidated old building that's sitting there not creating tax revenue, not demanding for the downtown businesses the things that are needed, and put it out there, see what the developers can come up with and do it. I thought it was a great program, and not only that, but the money from the reverter clause that Zimmerman had to pay to the school system to get it was $400,000. That went in and fed all kinds of ovens that were inside, kilns. They had all kinds of art projects, everything. So that's actually happening right now where all that's done. And then there's a $150,000 grant at the end of it that we get to be able to put something towards really cool stuff. And I think part of that should be murals. So there's some really cool stuff. So it can breathe and continue through Brevard County in the years to come.
And just to clarify for some of our viewers, the reverter clause that you referred to, the Henniger Center for the Arts, I believe, had some long-term lease and use of that land. They wanted to get out from that building to develop it as something, but there was something in the contract or the lease that said that if they did that, the property rights would revert to the school board, so the school board had to decide to let it go, correct?
That's a standard, reverter clause is a standard thing. We have it inside the EOC property up in Rockledge right now. So right now, I think now it's 4 years. If they don't break ground for construction in 4 years, that 10 acres up at the EOC in Rockledge reverts back to us. And that's a good thing, because a lot of cities will come out and say, yeah, we can use the property, we can do all that stuff, but then they don't. And then so what does it do? It just lays vacant while they try to do something. And the school board has done that with multiple parcels throughout the county. We have stuff, we put 7 properties on the potential list 2 days ago. There's 22, 24 acres, there's land on the ocean. I mean, it's pretty interesting.
One of the properties on that list that I am trying to figure out how I can go get it myself is the old O'Galley High School building, I think it is, on
Yep.
Pineapple
Yep.
Avenue.
We got to save it.
It's an old place. It's got a
Yep.
bus yard there or something, but what a terrific location to be at the other end of really a terrific other downtown that's being
Absolutely.
developed.
Yeah.
Jarin, while we're on that subject, I know you're not necessarily involved in O'Galley,
Yeah.
but how would you rate the progress there? What are you seeing, and what do you think's next?
Yeah, I was just down there the other weekend at Intracoastal, and there's a lot of shops that have opened up. They definitely have their own culture and their own feel. They're going to be doing a bunch of murals later this year. So I think they've made tremendous progress. I think they're doing really good work over there, and hopefully they'll be getting some more development too that will help support the work that they're trying to do. But I think it's good to have these 2 downtowns, having them be a little bit different, and I'm excited to see what's to come for them.
You know, that old building could be used as an arts college or an arts extension. And that's what a really good idea with that would be, is because it feeds that area downtown. And it's in good shape. It's not in bad shape, not like the old
I mean,
Melbourne
I
High School.
believe the school district had an area superintendent working out of there until relatively recently.
We're still
so-
running the air in there.
Interesting. Well, I still think that area is got a ton of potential, and I'm looking forward to
Absolutely.
seeing how that turns out. Another development that we talked about being a game changer for not necessarily downtown Melbourne, but for that core city area is the Groundswell, the
Yes.
privately funded, nonprofit kind of tech incubator. That word gets used a lot, but it really is different
Yes.
for this area. We have big engineering companies that build bombers and things like this. This is for web developers and other kinds of startups. It's kind of interesting to see. Matt, what do you make of that project?
I think it's a great thing. They're focusing on, I think, $1 million and up projects, not to the local guy who has a couple of little things. They're focusing on what is amazing, because there's a lot of federal primes that are here in the area, and that is a company who comes in and gives off subcontracts to little companies, right? So that's a perfect feeder for a lot of the guys that are working for one of these primes to break off and start a company. And Bud Diffenbach, who owns that Groundswell, is phenomenal. That's exactly what he is. And we are in, not many people know that, but we are in literally the IT center of arguably the eastern United States. And the fact with Harris being here and a lot of the other programs are all about IT, not so much about planes and building and stuff like that. So them being inside of here to fill that piece for a lot of those companies is not only going to grow our businesses locally, but it's going to get an opportunity for a lot of people to start thinking, hey, when they drive by, what about that idea? And it's just an amazing opportunity.
Jarin, a bunch of young people, probably some of them who haven't shaved in a while, working through the night in a big place that's still spray painted from being a skateboard park a while ago. How does that make a difference in a place like Melbourne?
It makes us cooler. That place is awesome. Groundswell is awesome. And we're using it as a tool. So when people are coming in, partnering with the EDC, and they're looking at Melbourne or looking what they could do here, we're showing them Groundswell and that there's support for new ideas and innovation here. And what is also special about that location is right behind Groundswell, you have Riverview Park, which is part of our CRA area, and that has a state-of-the-art playground. Parks and Rec are taking the lead on the revitalization there. Melbourne Main Street partnered with them. We did a mural on the pavilion. They have a picket program going. They just put in 5 pavilions. So talk about public spaces and revitalization and building out that whole area. I think they all work together really nicely.
I think that Riverview Park is an underappreciated,
Yep.
underleveraged gem, and when that area of Melbourne takes off again, that could be a real center of gravity for socializing and
Absolutely.
and recreation and that kind of thing. Let's shift gears a little bit. I want to talk about some serious stuff while we still have Matt in the studio, because I know he won't be with us in our last segment today. Brevard Public Schools has kind of begun to form its legislative agenda. This is what we go to the state and we ask for. seeking support, and two of the biggest things on the list right now, so far, are more funding for more vocational education, manufacturing, tech, that kind of thing, and more money for buses. More money for busing allows you to take more kids to more choices and more places. How do you size things up, Matt?
So the need for the busing is the fact that we have all of our career and technical programs and all of our choice programs are spread throughout 72 miles of a county. And you can, if you're in Viera High School, you have 3 choice programs. But if you want to go to a career and technical aviation program, you got to go to a galley. Now, in a normal county, you can just plop one big central vocational program right in the center of the county, and all the buses can go to that. But it's a logistical nightmare to try to have 2 or 3 of those voc tech programs who don't draw a huge amount of kids. So the idea is that the busing infrastructure, we need to go back to choice busing, and that's what this big move is. The other piece, though, is that because we literally are so long, we are underfunded as opposed to another county who actually has a square location, and their growth is to where their transportation is less miles. Just for a kid to go from Suntree over the causeway to Delora Middle School is 4,000 miles on one bus. You start to put together we have 480 buses. So when you talk about the transportation needs of our school district as compared to a lot of the other school districts inside the state, we're underfunded. So we're trying to pick that up, and we're trying to ask the state, look, take a look at how we are, and then try to give us more of a piece of the pie.
Jarin, when we have talked earlier in this program about who do we want to draw downtown, who do we want working here, a lot of it is recruiting people from outside to move in. Does the education that our kids get in Brevard County make a difference to how a city develops and what you do?
Absolutely, because we need their ideas, we need all of their creativity, and we need their passion. And so it's connecting all of those things. It's also making this a place where you don't have to leave to achieve your dreams, that you can stay. And so that's the right education, it's the right infrastructure, it's the right quality of life, and it's putting all of those places together. And how great would it be to have those vocational programs that feed right into all this tech and defense and manufacturing that's going on right here in this county, and people don't have to leave to do what they want to do in life.
A perfect example for that is Craig Technologies. John Craig and his wife, they looked around to 5 different locations, and the main reason they came, if you ask John, is because of the schools.
School board member now.
Yeah, now he's a school board member. He said, we moved here to Brevard because of the schools. We wanted our kids to go to school there. That is huge to say that we have manufacturers making decisions based on our local schools too. That is, I'm proud to be a part of that.
Jarin, I think Matt's biggest question today is, can they have drone races in downtown Melbourne?
Absolutely. As long as you take lots of event footage and mural footage and then give it all to me to promote, absolutely.
I noticed some pretty righteous drone footage on the Downtown Melbourne website when I was preparing for this program here. But in all seriousness, Matt, you have been drone crazy for the last couple of months. She's been an evangelist for downtown. You've been an evangelist for drones and drone education as part of education. Explain.
So drones are going to be the next wave, right? Just like the internet was in the 1990s with websites and everything else, that's what it is. Literally, we are putting together the largest UAS drone school system in the United States. Have drone racing in both elementary, middle, and high school. So that's aerial drones. Underwater drones in elementary, middle, and high school. Innovation challenges where a group of students can form a club, literally receive all of the components and build a drone for a person inside of this community. So for instance, we just partnered with the Soil and Water Conservation District. They need kids to go out and tag all of the cattle out on the St. Johns River. Beautiful. So this school will literally put together a drone that will go fly over, and that's an innovation challenge. And because of RFID tagging all of the cattle all the way, they're able to identify all of them so that the cow guy doesn't have to go out there and look for them. The other thing is it can fly over the top and tell moisture in each one of the fields. It can tell you how the crops are doing based upon all of their pH levels and everything else that are inside of there. That's just one. They have a multitude of other challenges that they're going to go for. And we're having a huge thing called Innovation Days, which is the Friday before the air show in Melbourne, where 17 other school districts are coming to compete in both drone racing along with these innovation challenges. We're actually kicking this thing off at Northrop Grumman on November 12th, And Embry-Riddle's come in to do dual enrollment inside of our schools. They're actually building drone domes in 2 of our high schools so that our kids can actually do stuff outdoors. You're going to see, we're actually hosting the first preseason race at the Space Coast Tech Council's event over at O'Galley, and we get announced by the international drone manufacturer AUVSI as the #1 drone school system in the United States next month. So this is pretty big, and we've already had, at the EDC, they've already had 4 drone manufacturers contact them in reference to, hey, what's going on there, to possibly try to move down here. It's just really phenomenal. So
I usually think about the drone that one of my staff members have. For this program, we go out and we take some drone video, and it's one of those little 4-propeller white things that buzzes and zooms around. But there are other kinds of bigger, more mainstream drones, are there not? That these students would be learning to work with. And
the idea here isn't just to have a bunch of kids drone racing and doing all this stuff. Literally, industry is screaming for pilots for all this and for people in techs to work on them. Our aviation hangar that we put at O'Galley High School, half of it will be for drones. There's a drone manufacturer for military drones up in Jacksonville that's going to come and sponsor it. And what he's going to do is bring in military drones. Our kids will learn how to work on those military drones, and we're going to feed our kids who want to become pilots into the Reaper project with the Air Force, which is their drone piloting. Another thing is they came in, the company that's putting together the challenge came here the other day, and they literally 3D modeled our entire school board in 17 minutes down to 1/2 of an inch with one of these things. It flew over and then printed out on top of his laptop everything within 1/2 of an inch. So our entire school district will be able to give 3D models to the security officers so that if they ever have an incident on campus, they'll be able to have a 3D model instantly. And that's all for free. So every one of those industries needs pilots. Every one of those industries needs techs. They all need to understand that. Nobody's doing it. You look across at the entire United States, nobody has a high school system that's piping kids into this. You have Embry-Riddle starting to talk about it. They're doing dual enrollment and stuff like that, but nobody's creating that pipe, and that's what we're going to do. That's what makes this the most important thing, I think, that I've done in a while.
You buying it, Jarin? What do you make of that?
I am. That sounds awesome. I'm in. Sounds cool.
All right, well, when we come back, Brevard's tourism agency is investing in projects that are good for people who live here all the time. What's up with that? We'll let you know.
Take the BPS CCU High School Mascot debit card anywhere, anyplace. Show your school spirit every time you use your card. Get your favorite BPS CCU High School Mascot debit card today by visiting any CCU branch. Learn more at ccuflorida.org/spirit.
Hi there, I'm Brevard School Superintendent Desmond Blackburn, and I need to hear from you. Whether you're a parent, school employee, business person, or a senior in our amazing Legacy Club. At a town hall meeting near you, I'll share the latest on how our schools are performing based on what the community has already asked for. Then I'll ask you, what's next? What does your child or grandchild need most to succeed? What does your business or agency need in a high school graduate? How can our schools better support quality of life in your neighborhood? I will listen carefully, and I know your school board will too.
Hi, I'm Tina Deskovich, your school board member for District 3. To better serve you, we need to know your questions, needs, and concerns. Please join me and Superintendent Blackburn for a special town hall meeting that I will be hosting at Satellite High School. Mark your calendars for October 12th from 5:30 to 7. I hope to see you there.
This is Brevard Watch. I'm Matt Reed, and my guest for this segment is Jarin Eisenberg, Executive Director of Melbourne Main Street. She is one of the evangelists and organizers that make things interesting in downtown Melbourne. Jarin, one of the more serious and difficult issues for any downtown, and I know you've been involved with it recently, is homelessness. You've been involved in a program called Street to Home, I believe. Mm-hmm. What is that about?
So the Street to Home movement is a coordinated effort to address chronic homelessness through the Housing First model. So what they do is they identify individuals in a state of chronic homelessness, and we try to address populations that aren't being addressed elsewhere, so we're not duplicating efforts. So it's mostly men, and they've been homeless probably more than 3 years, usually more than 5. We find them permanent housing, and then once we get them into housing, we wrap them around with services. So that's access to preventative care, mental health care, rehab, whatever they need to lead a more stable life, job training, of course. And so that is really being led by the South Brevard Sharing Center in partnership with the Daily Bread, with the City of Melbourne, with the Melbourne Police Department. What we've done that I'm so proud of is we brought all these groups together. So once a month, we have community gatherings. And in that meeting, it's the Daily Bread, South Brevard Sharing Center, police, city. It's the individuals that live around the neighborhood of the Daily Bread. And we all get together and we check on each other. And we say, what do you need? What are we seeing? Who can we address? And we have specific names that we've seen on the street. And we make sure that our outreach worker, which is funded by the City of Melbourne, can go out there and start engaging with individuals so we can get them off the street. To date, they've housed just over 115 chronically homeless people, and that's since January of 2016. It's very, very impressive. And so now we're looking at what are next steps. We're going to travel to Jacksonville. They have a very impressive housing program there. If you remember, we talked about a year and a half ago, we went to Clearwater and saw their system. So we want to learn from other cities and what they're doing and what works. And so we're going to go meet with their housing, because the need for low income housing is an obstacle that we have to address. We talked about all the engineers coming to this county, which is wonderful, but rents are just skyrocketing. It's getting harder and harder to find these houses. So we want to make sure that we're still able to follow through the housing first model, which is the national model, which is most successful.
I have to imagine that during Hurricane Irma, there were a lot of service workers who need those shifts and those tips just to make the next rent payment. Keep the lights on, that kind of thing, and maybe they're not going to make it.
Absolutely.
So we could see some sort of spike or change in homelessness as a result.
Yeah, and what you hope is that groups that are really good, United Way has programs that address that gap, that can kind of help you with that electric bill or that 1 month of mortgage, just so that you don't become homeless. Street to Home in South Brevard Sharing Center, they have a rapid rehousing program which tries to get you back into a house as fast as possible with rental assistance so that you don't become long-term homeless. So it's a complex issue. It needs many, many hands to solve. You
just described something related to the Daily Bread that sounded, the way you described it was very, very different from what I've heard in Brevard County in years past. For our viewers and listeners who are from other parts of Brevard County and don't know what the Daily Bread is, it's essentially a soup kitchen and a service center for people who are homeless on Fee Avenue, right downtown just about, but near the hospital and US 1 and the north side of downtown. Years ago, the City of Melbourne did not want this. It was seen as a hindrance to redeveloping a downtown. People didn't want to buy homes down there because they were afraid of vagrants in their yards. They gave them a hard time. It sounds like things are different now. Am I right?
Yes.
If so, how?
Things are different. So we've kind of built this community and we've been very open and honest about what we're doing and what our needs are. And I'll give you a really good example of how things have changed. On the corner of Fee Avenue, we were having lots of people just hang out there all day, sitting in chairs, lying down. Trash was going to downtown. Neighbors were getting upset. And whether it's Daily Bread's fault or not, it all comes back to the Daily Bread. So we had these community meetings and we said, okay, well, let's try to solve this corner with the Daily Bread. So one of the things that we asked is the Daily Bread had a list of people that were banned from services for one reason or another. And so the Daily Bread went back and they created a reinstatement policy so that people that were banned for services could now get food from the Daily Bread again, use their hygiene, get their ID cards, whatever they needed. So that stopped people from dropping food off on the corner to those people, or for people bringing food outside. And then we were able to bring the neighborhood in. So the neighborhood and Daily Bread members would go sit on the corner and they say, what are you doing? What do you need? How can we help you? I joined the board of the Daily Bread so that we're always communicating with each other and they know what I'm seeing downtown and I know how downtown can support the Daily Bread. They are our neighbor. They help support when we went to the city to ask for money for that caseworker. They work with us in our housing, and so they're partners. They provide essential services that people in this community, I don't know where they would be. Imagine not being able to get an ID card.
Right.
Taking a shower. Lots of individuals that are in a state of chronic homelessness, their address is the Daily Bread. That's where their mail goes. And so we needed to support them and we needed them to understand our position, and we all work really well together.
I once went into the Daily Bread to work on a story and see how things were going there, and I saw one of the most telling things about Brevard County inside that building there. It was the list, it was a calendar pinned up in the back offices there behind the kitchen, and it showed who was coming in to volunteer. And it was one entire church after another church, after another church, after another church, after synagogue, after temple, and it just, the cross-section of organizations and the sheer number of people who were going in there to give and to volunteer was astounding to me.
Yeah.
It was such an amazing disconnect in a way, because here were all these people and organizations from around Brevard who were going to the Daily Bread to support it and its mission and those people. But then on the other hand, they were among the same types of people who would fear the crime.
Absolutely.
And who were concerned about the redevelopment of the downtown.
Yep.
It sounds like things are beginning to square a little bit.
And I think a lot of that has to do with the street to home movement. So they've housed over 100 individuals. That's 115 people that are not on the street anymore. And a lot of them aren't even going to the Daily Bread because now they have a kitchen, they can cook. They might go to a food pantry to help them bridge and as they need it. But I think it's reduced the load of the Daily Bread. It's given a more permanent solution to what's happening. And addressing those mental health concerns are key. So with that outreach worker that the City of Melbourne helps fund, we no longer call the cops. We call a social service worker, and they come out and they address that issue. But the other great part about it is that everybody knows who everybody's talking to. So if I bring up somebody that I've seen downtown, the Daily Bread can say when they last seen them. Street to Home knows where they are so they can go talk to them. So it's coordinated effort, and we try not to duplicate each other's efforts.
I want to shift gears a little bit, although it's kind of related, and that is, how much does downtown redevelopment help other parts of a city? You know, if there's a criticism that I see in story comments and elsewhere, it's that, well, you're putting all this money and these resources and economic development and community redevelopment agencies and that kind of thing into, say, new apartment complexes or street lighting downtown. But what does that do for people who live down off of University Avenue or the Booker T. Washington neighborhood, or for that matter, just, you know, in any of the sprawling neighborhoods around the airport that are farther away from downtown?
You need these public spaces. You need quality of life, and I would think that the other cities that surrounding us, they would love to have a downtown. There's extra cost, there's extra problems that come with having a downtown, but we wouldn't give that up for anything. And you have to think about one of my sponsorships for my events. If I'm looking at my food and wine festival, I have 25 sponsors that have nothing to do with downtown Melbourne. Why? Because it means something to their business to have a vibrant downtown. It's where ideas exchange, it's where business is done, it's where people go to blow off steam, and we do a lot of free community events. Friday Fest is a free community event, candlelight shopping, all of these things that we do that are free to the community that everyone can come enjoy their downtown. It's everyone's downtown.
I live in Satellite Beach, and there's lots of vacant commercial land. And I was talking to the mayor there one time, Frank Catino, and I said, when is something going to happen here? We've got all this space to build a downtown. We're going to do something. Why aren't we? And he just kind of shrugged and he said, people like it here. It's fine. Yeah. We'll see how things go. And it made me realize we're not going to see rapid change or a downtown in some of these other. So Melbourne is the downtown for a place like Satellite Beach. I mean, there's stuff I love to do. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But you know, in my city.
Yeah.
But if I'm going out for a night of walking around and having a glass of wine or going to Meg O'Malley, I want to go to there, maybe Cocoa Village.
Absolutely.
Or a couple of other places if I'm not going to get in the car and drive all the way to Orlando.
Yep.
So it's really pretty neat. You've got such a great background. You've experienced so many things in Melbourne. I want to get your take on some news that has been coming up in other parts of Brevard County that might be kind of related. One of the stories that is coming out now is that I think it's the Tourism Development Council and the Space Coast Tourism Agency, led by Eric Garvey, are beginning to undertake some projects around Brevard County, I think a lot in the Cocoa Beach area, using bed taxes from hotels. But instead of them being, I don't know, just for tourists, these are recreation and park kinds of projects that are also deliberately meant to help the quality of life of people who live here.
Yeah.
And you can just anticipate some of the questions, maybe criticisms about, is that the right way to spend the money? What is your take on that?
I love it. I think Eric has just done such a great job, and people want these public spaces to be developed, but they always think it's somebody else's job to do it. It's the city's job to do it. Well, that may take forever. It's the community's job. Well, we don't want to raise taxes to put it into that. And I think TDC is saying, we have the resources, we're going to do it. And I think it just benefits the entire community to have these parks and beautiful walkways and all the things that they're doing. So I'm a big fan, and I hope for some capital projects in Melbourne soon.
It's a little bit different because I think they're going to take Laurie Wilson Park.
Yep.
It's a county park, right?
Yep.
And they're going to take it out of general revenue that the county pays for a park and make it its own enterprise somehow.
Yeah.
Which is really going to raise the stakes a little bit for making it a place that tourists want to go. Residents will be able to use it for free, but they'll charge for tourists to go there, to go to the beach and do that kind of thing. It's a little bit different. Is there anything like that happening elsewhere in Brevard County that you know of?
Not that I know of, but I know that they have like boat races and a lot of other things that happen at Laurie Wilson Park. And Cocoa Beach is where the majority of the bed tax comes from. We all benefit from the tourism that happens there, and for them to kind of put it back in infrastructure, I don't know. I think it's a win-win.
Yeah, Ben Malik, the mayor of Cocoa Beach, was telling me about this project that they are trying to get undertaken as well. It's really more out near the country club and Cocoa Beach High School. There's an interesting spit of land off of the Indian River there, and they're trying to get that same group of organizations together to put a kayak launch or for crew and that sort of thing. What do you make of that?
I like it. I think we need it. I don't really know what the argument against it would be. I think these things need to be done, and if people can do them and it adds to the community and it's for the public good, why not?
Do you think that cities in Brevard County are doing enough or making the most of their riverfront areas?
Absolutely not. I mean, if you look at the water in downtown, we don't capitalize on it at all. It's like an afterthought. And if you go to St. Petersburg or some of these other cities, I mean, everything is around the water. If you think about Riverview Park, I mean, what a beautiful view of the Indian River Lagoon, and it's just kind of being developed now. So I don't think we take advantage of it. I'm excited for the marina project that hopefully will come to life that will capitalize on the water. It's one of our greatest assets. We talk about the importance of the lagoon all the time to business and tourism. So I think we do need to capitalize on it.
Let's talk about that for a minute. That was one of the stories that was breaking recently about, it was an old marina area.
Yeah.
There was a restaurant there. What was it called? Coral Bay or something?
I think so.
I went there right when I first moved to Brevard County in 2001. That was open for a little while, and then I guess it suffered some damage and closed. But it's been just kind of a vacant thing, sticking out on the Indian River, north of downtown.
Yep.
And now they're looking at, the city has decided to sell that property and to a hotel developer.
Yeah.
Is that going to fly?
I hope so. It's a beautiful looking property. I know the city got a lot of criticism when they took the risk and they purchased that property. So to see something be done with it, that money come back into the city of Melbourne, and then to have a beautiful hotel and restaurants and a beautiful outdoor seating, I think that's great for the area. I know the businesses that are all around it will truly benefit from it. And it's more money into the city of Melbourne for them to continue to do things.
All right, quick, fun story, I think. Okay. But Representative Randy Fine from Melbourne Beach, he's a representative for that South County area, has filed a bill to ban soda purchases with food stamps. Is he being mean, or do you think that's a good idea?
I think that we need to help people have better access to healthy food that is beneficial, but I think when you're living on a very, very tight budget, food that is not great for you is cheaper, and it goes further. If you're a mom or a family who's working 2 or 3 jobs at all different hours to try to make ends meet, you need to feed your kids something for dinner, and you may not have the time or the resources to roast the carrots and do all of this. So I think that the focus should be on making sure that people have access to the things they need to live a more stable and healthy life.
All right, we got just about a minute left. I'm looking for someplace good to go this weekend in downtown Melbourne.
Yeah.
I'm going to drop in for dinner and a couple of drinks. What's the best new place? Or not necessarily the best, but recommend
You're going to get me in so much trouble.
Recommend
I can't pick a
something.
name.
Okay,
Can I
recommend 2 or 3.
All right. I would say go grab a drink at Iron Oak Post. They always have live music, great vibe in there. Go grab dinner at the Mansion. Sit up at the Terrace. Stop by Hell and Blazes. Have a great beer in the brewery. Jacqueline's Bakery. Pick up some croissants for the morning. There's just so much to see and do. Stop by the seafood station and take a picture in front of that new mural. I can't pick just one.
That's solid intelligence, though, and especially I think your pick of the Mansion and the rooftop deck. We're just about getting to that point in Florida weather where it's, I wouldn't say it's fall.
I
but
feel
it's
a
just
little
kind
bit.
of-
I feel a
It's
little
kind of like
bit.
less blazing hot summer. That it makes it really, really nice to be up there and get that breeze off of the
Absolutely.
Jarin Eisenberg, thank you so much for joining
Thanks
us.
for
in the
having
studio
me.
Today. Well, that's our program for this week. My thanks to Community Credit Union for sponsoring today's program. And thank you to my guests, School Board Member Matt Susin and Melbourne Main Street Director Jarin Eisenberg. Watch for us next week, Brevard, on Brevard Watch.